friend broke my model kit, so I took away her everything. I live in Turkey, and as you know, southeast of my country was wrecked by a couple of giant earthquakes a year ago. My city was the epicenter, and while the house I lived with my family wasn't destroyed, a lot of shelves got knocked off, and one of them was the one where I held my Gunpla kits. Out of all the kits I had, only one survived. An AMG the O that was heavily customized. I had built it with my grandfather who passed away a few years ago, so I was ecstatic it survived. A few months after everything has come down, so my mother called her relatives for dinner, which included Aunt B. Not for B as an annoying woman, but her name does start with the letter B. She came alongside her son, who is 8 and is an entitled brat. While the adults were drinking coffee, this little brat barged into my room and demanded to play with my computer, which I refused since I was editing a video for my college society and had the camera on. Well, the brat went back crying to her mother, who came and started yelling at me. While I was dealing with her, little brat climbed my desk and took my model kit, then immediately dropped it and stepped on it. The rest is just yelling, me swearing them up and down and telling them they gonna pay for it, with her calling me a weirdo for still having toys and that she wasn't gonna pay for anything. My mother was at first a bit not into making her pay to keep peace, but when she realized that it was the kit I made with my late grandfather, her father, she was angrier than I was and went out for blood. We took the case to a friend of ours who is a lawyer that specializes within family cases. And they told us since my camera caught it all, we would definitely win, but it was better to come to an agreement out of court in a settlement since it would be cheaper. I pulled out a price list of the kits I needed to make an exact replica of the one that was destroyed, and it came just about $1,000. Well, she refused, so she took her to court. She pulled all kinds of bullcrap not to pay and delay, but the judge ended up making her pay $1,650 plus an order for her to pay any border taxes on the replacement kits alongside the court and lawyer fees. It completely hacked up her savings, and her husband, who was already waiting for a chance to divorce her, took it. When it all ended up, she had nothing and even lost her brat's custody to her ex-husband. And she not only lost the down payment she had for a house, she lost all her savings and didn't get alimony from her husband. Am I happy her life got completely hacked? No, not really. Do I feel sorry it happened? Not in the slightest. She and her crotch gobbling hacked around and found out. It's that simple. I feel bad for her husband though. He's gonna be the one trying to make the brat into a normal person, and I do not envy that in the slightest. The only question I have about this story is, why do you need your camera on if you're editing the video? Please like the video and subscribe to the channel, because I really want to get to 200 subscribers as soon as possible. Neighbor ruined my garden, I turned his yard into a swamp. Get ready for a wild ride, folks. This is the story of how my battle with neighbor over my beloved garden led me to transform his pristine yard into a swamp, and in the process I became a local legend. It all started when I moved into a new house, which came with a small but charming garden. Gardening quickly became my passion, and I spent months turning that space into a blooming paradise, full of flowers and a few veggies. My neighbors seemed to appreciate the view, all except one. Let's call him Grumpy Greg. Grumpy Greg was the kind of guy who took too much pride in his perfectly manicured lawn, the type that looks more like a golf course than a yard. He despised my garden, calling it untidy and an eyesore that attracted pests. I tried to reason with him, offered to keep it more contained, even suggested setting up a small fence, but no, Greg wanted it gone. One morning, I woke up to find most of my garden destroyed. Flowers uprooted, veggies trampled, and my small bird bath smashed. I knew it was Greg. No proof, but who else would it be? I was furious, heartbroken, but then inspiration struck. I remembered Greg's one true love, his flawless lawn. I did some research and found the perfect, most diabolical, yet completely legal revenge. I bought hundreds of water retention crystals, the kind meant to help soil retain moisture for plants. Except I wasn't planning on using them for their intended purpose. Under the cover of night, I went to work, spreading those crystals all over Greg's precious lawn. These tiny crystals are harmless, but when they come into contact with water, they expand, holding many times their weight in water. And wouldn't you know, the forecast predicted a week of heavy rain starting the next day. The rain came, and the crystals did their job too well. Greg's perfect lawn transformed into a squishy, waterlogged mess. Every step taken on the grass felt like stepping on a waterbed. The lawnmower got stuck, and the yard had become the neighborhood's newest swamp. Greg was livid, blaming everyone and everything for his misfortune, but couldn't prove a thing. It took weeks for the effects to wear off, and by then, his lawn never truly recovered. In the meantime, I rebuilt my garden, even better than before. Neighbors who learned about the ordeal and Greg's role in destroying my garden came to help, bringing plants, seeds, and even a new birth bath. My garden became a symbol of the community, a place where neighbors would stop by to chat and admire the flowers. As for Greg, he became a lot less grumpy, especially after I casually mentioned how unpredictable gardening can be and how it's important to have good relationships with your neighbors. He got the message loud and clear. So that's the tale of how I turned a bully's yard into a swamp, and in the process united our little community. Sometimes a bit of creative thinking and a whole lot of water retention crystals is all it takes to stand up to a bully and come out on top. It is a rare day when you can find such a wholesome story on a revenge subreddit, so I'm happy today. Disrespect me? I will ruin your whole damn career. So my old boss, beloved by all, left the company last year. While they were trying to find a replacement, upper management decided that the person in charge of another department should be our boss. For the time being, of course. This person, let's call her Dina, does not have a single iota of information of what anyone on this team does. Nor does she want to learn what we do. Fine, whatever. Just let me do my work, get my money, and leave me alone. This issue comes in when she suddenly decides that we are disrespecting her with everything we do. Not early enough to a meeting? 15 minutes is her latest earliest. Disrespect! Have to step away to use the restroom? Disrespect! Take your paid time off that's offered by the company? Disrespect! Finally, I have enough and start documenting every instance with proof and witnesses into a massive Excel sheet. At this point, sure, it's annoying and I'm passively looking for new work, but I've dealt with worse. The breaking point for me came during my yearly review. This is the first and hopefully only time I've ever been put on a performance improvement plan. I was told repeatedly that I was lazy and disrespectful, despite several clients providing positive feedback and me working until 10 p.m. most nights. But I keep quiet, I toe the line until I have a new job. Then I let the floodgates open. Now, something important to note is that while our former boss was great, we weren't all going to quit in solidarity with her. But me? Well, that's a bit of a different story. In addition to my job, I also worked to make my coworkers' jobs easier too. I was kind of the glue holding that entire team together. So when I quit, everyone else on my team did as well. And what did our team do, you might ask? Well, we supplied a service that brought in the majority of the revenue. With no one to supply the service, the business would head towards bankruptcy. Back to the story. When I put in my resignation, I decided to include the spreadsheet to provide further insight as to why I was leaving. And to top it all off, I decided to BCC the CEO. He and I are pretty close, and he's told me on multiple occasions that he would do anything to keep me employed here. When he found out about Dina's antics, he held true to his word, asked if he should fire Dina. Now, Dina may be a prick, but she has young kids, and I am not a prick. So I told him no, but if anyone else leaves because of her, then he should rethink her employment. Well, my last day comes and goes, and the rest of the team puts in their resignations, effective immediately. Citing disrespect from Dina specifically. With no team to manage, CEO decides that Dina no longer has a place at the company and decides to fire her with no severance. How do I know? Dina decided to spam call me for several days, but my new fancy job is at a law firm, and I was able to get one of them to draft up a cease and desist. Haven't heard a peep since, and now I'm just enjoying my new gig, Dina free. Something tells me that OP is exaggerating somewhere in the story. If you're such a good friend with CEO, why you had so many problems at work? And I don't believe it's possible to just fire someone who is the head of a department effective immediately and with no severance. I say true, but maybe not completely. Thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed. Please like the video, subscribe to the channel. You can also watch that awesome video or this awesome playlist. See you next time!